Hi, friends. I hope you all are doing well in your respective lives. Today, I, Kunal Nagpal, would like to welcome you all to this great academic forum, Nagpal Economic Academia. My dear friends, on this forum, I would like to discuss a very interesting news with all of you. It's a great news of interest that the Asia Pacific region is actually performing very well in the entire world economy. You would actually be very delighted to know that the Asia Pacific is actually about to contribute more than 70% of the global growth in the current financial year 2023, and this has been very accurately projected by the leading international organization, that is IMF, International Monetary Fund. Isn't this really great? We are observing that the economic parameters at a global level are actually going haywire. But the Asia Pacific region is actually expected to perform extraordinarily well. And in this region, India is specifically performing quite extraordinarily. Even though the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund have actually reduced the projection of the GDP growth by the Indian economy from 6.1% to 5.9%. But still, the Indian economy is actually creating the history in the entire globe, across the entire globe. And this is really outstanding. This is really outstanding. So, let's discuss forecasting an acceleration in the gross domestic product growth rate for the Asia Pacific region from 3.8% last year to 4.6% in the year 2023. The International Monetary Fund on Thursday said that the region is actually set to contribute over 70% to the global growth this particular year, even as it reels from inflation, debt, and financial vulnerabilities. The International Monetary Fund earlier had paid its forecast for India's growth to 5.9% from 6.1% for the current fiscal year, while painting a bleak picture for the world economy, battling tightening financial conditions, even as the Russia-Ukraine war rages on and the pandemic lingers. This is really quite surprising, my dear friends, as I had said that if we observe the entire global economic scenario, we are actually observing that various economic parameters are going haywire. If we consider the intensifying situations, as I have just mentioned, the gradually intensifying Russia-Ukraine war, and the after effects of the pandemic, which is actually existing from last 3 years, and the resultant effects of these particular crises in the food and energy sector, major crisis in the health sector, the supply chain disruptions, and various countries undergoing policy paralysis or the dysfunction in the overall policy framework. This is really quite a tough time, and the countries who are able to survive these tough times are the real warriors. And if I talk about India specifically, India is not only a warrior, but my dear friends, it is actually an angel, because with its excellent, extremely dynamic policy framework, it is not only able to survive itself through the effective operationalization of the self-reliant Bharat policy, that is the Atmanirbharta, which is actually embarking the golden era of Amrit Kal or Amrit Mahotsav. That too in such tough times. But it is also helping other countries at the best possible level, and the excellent example is the first neighborhood policy. Now coming back. In India, the growth momentum will begin to slow as the softening domestic demand offsets the strong external services demand. The growth is expected to moderate slightly from 6.8% in 2022 to 5.9% this year, it said in a statement. In January, the multilateral lender had actually predicted India's GDP to basically grow 6.1% in the fiscal year 2024 and 6.8% in the fiscal year 2025. The forecast for the fiscal year 2025 has now been cut by half a percentage point to 6.3%. So, my dear friends, despite the cut, India will actually be the fastest growing economy over the next 2 years. Last week, the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank, that is the ADB, had actually reduced India's growth forecast for the fiscal year 2024 to 6.3% and 6.4% respectively. The Reserve Bank of India's Monetary Policy Committee, however, last week lifted its forecast for India's GDP growth to 6.5% for the fiscal year 2024 compared with 6.4% projected in its February meeting. Now, my dear friends, let's have a diversified outlook for Asia Pacific region, that is for the entire Asia Pacific region, though we have just noticed that the Indian economy is actually creating the great laurels of success and is actually becoming the lighthouse not only for the Asia Pacific but for the entire globe. But let's talk about Asia Pacific in general. My dear friends, IMF basically sees a lot of strong dynamism among the Asian emerging markets and developing economies in 2023. So this will basically be driven primarily by the recovery in China and resilient growth in India. So these are the two economies which will alone account for almost half of the global growth. This is really the great achievement. Growth in most other economies is actually expected to bottom out in 2023 in line with other regions, it said. The International Monetary Fund further noted that the public debt levels in the region have actually increased significantly compared to before the pandemic. Most governments are basically expected to tighten the budgets this year and next. However, the projected consolidation may not be enough to actually stabilize the debt, and rising interest rates would basically make the burden even heavier. And this has been very rightly quoted by the International Monetary Fund's Mr. Krishna Srinivasan and Alasdair Scott. I repeat this statement as it's the main highlight. That is, most governments are basically expected to tighten the budgets this year and next. However, the projected consolidation basically may not be enough to stabilize the debt, and rising interest rates would make the burden even heavier. So calling for the need for alertness owing to recent developments in the global banking sector, as all of us are quite aware of the Silicon Valley Bank crisis, which is really the great massacre in the entire banking sector, if I talk specifically about the US economy. And this has impacted various economies across the globe, but India has been able to insulate itself very well from this crisis. A lot of applause for the Indian economy and the excellent efficiency of the overall banking sector. So, with regards to the Silicon Valley Bank crisis, which has recently happened in the US economy, the International Monetary Fund said that the best remedy for the financial stress is actually prevention. The policymakers should actually keep a very close and stern eye for the stresses and hence develop the contingency plans. Furthermore, unless the strains in the financial markets increase and raise the broad-based stability concerns, the central banks should ideally separate the monetary policy objectives from the financial stability goals. I repeat this extremely important highlight, that is, unless the strains in the financial markets increase and hence raise the broad-based stability concerns, the central banks should actually separate the monetary policy objectives from the financial stability goals. So in order to do so, they should actually use the available tools such as lending and discount facilities to actually ease any liquidity constraints in the banking sector, allowing them to continue to tighten policy to address the inflationary pressures. That is what is being highlighted here, that the financial objectives and the monetary policy objectives should actually stay bifurcated and they should work in isolation. I know that I might be sounding quite odd that I'm talking that the financial stability goals and the monetary policy objectives should act in isolation or bifurcation. But listen to me very clearly. I wish to say that unless the strains in the financial markets increase and raise the broad-based stability concerns, the central banks should ideally separate the monetary policy objectives from the financial stability goals, and this is actually the need of the hour. So in order to do so, they should actually use the available tools such as lending and discount facilities to ease any liquidity constraints in the banking sector, effectively allowing them to actually continue to tighten the policy in order to address the inflationary pressures. And this is an excellent step, my dear guys, as we are seeing the increasing volatility and a lot of uncertainty across the entire globe. And the recent crisis of the Silicon Valley Bank, which has actually shaken the entire US banking sector. This is really the need of the hour, which should be incorporated in the banking sector. So that's all for the day, my dear guys, and I hope you must have been benefited immensely with the great insights presented in the session. So I wish you all the best and take excellent care of yourselves until we meet next. Thank you so much. Namaskar. Jai Hind.